Hello and welcome to the first Sage 1 Google Plus Hangout on air. Today I'm joined by a series of great guest speakers, but I'm going to hand over to Matthew Stibber, who's going to introduce them all and moderate today's chat. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Paul. Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Stibber, and I was looking up cloud computing in the Oxford English Dictionary. Always a good place to start for introductions. And it only entered the dictionary last year, although the phrase has been around for a lot longer than that. But it means, according to the OED, the practice of using a network of remote servers hosted on the internet to store, manage, and process data, rather than a local server or personal computer. Well, we're here today to find out a little bit more about that and how it's helping millions of small businesses in the UK. Already 5 million companies are using Google Apps. And I'm here with Nick Good, head of Sage 1 at Sage, Neil Delaney, head of SMB sales at Google Enterprise, and Amy Copeland, who's head of communications at the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. And I'd like to start, Neil, by asking you, how is cloud computing in practice different from what people are used to with software and hardware?
Thanks, Matthew. Well, the cloud is really probably the single biggest shift in computing that we've seen in recent years. It completely changes the economics and the capabilities of how we can work together. You mentioned some definitions there of cloud computing, but essentially for the most part, they all talk, there's lots of different definitions, but they all boil down to the same thing: taking applications and running them on infrastructure other than your own. So essentially what you do is you outsource this functionality. And there are several reasons that drive companies to investigate or adopt cloud computing services. The primary reason is cost. And really small companies can't afford a large amount of hardware nor the staff that really goes along with it. Large companies may find the cost of maintaining and managing their own data centers, for example, to be completely prohibitive. So they go, why not outsource to companies who specialize in running data centers and providing hardware virtualization services, and then you only pay for what you use. So it's the classic buy versus rent scenario. But as well as offering significant cost savings for companies by being less expensive, of course, it also, moving to things like monthly flexible billing, essentially where you move from this idea of a CapEx to an OpEx expenditure. It also offers much more powerful benefits. Because your data and your information is not tied to one single on-premise device, it means that it's accessible by you in a way that suits how you work and the changing way in which we all work today. So, for example, I can start an email or a business plan or whatever it might be over my computer at breakfast in the morning, continue it on my tablet on the train into work, finish the email on my work computer, and then edit it on my smartphone running between meetings during the day. The cloud actually facilitates this working environment, whatever it might be. And also the beauty of the cloud is that you're accessing your information through a browser. So by simply refreshing the browser, you always have the latest version of that software. There's no more painful and expensive upgrades. You always have the latest technology at your disposal. And this is a really, really powerful message for large enterprises, let alone SMEs. The cloud really democratizes IT and really does help small businesses compete with larger companies in this area. So it's a really, really powerful concept.
Well, thank you. That's a nice introduction. And Nick, in particular, how does it help small businesses? A perception might be that this is something for much larger companies. So how does it work for SMBs, as we might call them?
Thanks, Matthew. This cloud technology is particularly useful for startups and small business because anybody who's started a small business or worked in a very small business knows what's on your mind. Cash flow, first of all, right? How to manage your cash, not paying out large sums of money up front. What's on your mind is making sure that you want to be running your business So whether that's window cleaning or being a consultant or running a dental practice, you don't want to be worried about how I pay my people, how I run my accounts. And so the cloud offers instant access, as Neil said, to applications from world-class companies such as Google and Sage. And what this means is that companies or even sole traders, and let's remember there's 2,000 businesses started every day in the UK and a 10% increase in self-employment in 12 months. All of those startup self-employed people and very small businesses all need to run, and they all need to have customers, they all need to make money, they all need to manage their accounts, pay people if they employ them. And so being able to get up and running extremely quickly is what the cloud offers. I think we're going to talk as well about work-life balance. I think there's a lot of kind of glamour around starting a business through shows like The Apprentice, but the reality is a lot of people start a business because they've been made redundant, or maybe they have children and they need to balance work with their life. So the ability to be able, as Neil said, to start something in the morning and finish it at lunchtime and do that from your tablet or your PC or your phone is really, really important. And I think the final thing on this is it's all about ease of use. So, cloud vendors such as Sage or Google want their customers to be able to get up and running quickly. And anybody that's used web apps, and even in kind of social media, there's no documentation that comes with Facebook, right? So people want to be able to perform their business tasks very simply with no training and be up and running at a fraction of the cost of traditional software. And these are, again, some of the advantages that cloud computing really offers.
A friend of mine said nobody on their deathbed wishes they'd spent more time doing IT admin.
Precisely. And, we're finding that, things like paying your staff using Sage One Payroll can take 2 minutes, and you can do it from home, whereas you probably think of that as something difficult and complex. I guess one other point for me would be from where Sage, is our expertise is all around compliance. So, things that are necessarily dull to most people, but things like tax and things like real-time information, which is the new payroll legislation from the government coming through on the 6th of April this year. With cloud computing, I think Neil said this as well, updates are done straight away. So if there's a change in the software, the customer gets it the next time he or she logs in. There's no download or reinstalling required. So again, it gives the customer peace of mind, efficiency, time saving, keeps them up to speed and up to date with anything that's changing in the product.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. So one concern I've heard businesses raise about this is, well, if I'm putting all my information into Sage's systems or into Google systems and I'm uploading it on the internet and I'm using it through a browser, haven't I sort of lost control? Isn't there a security risk in that? And I know, Neil, that you don't agree with that analysis, but I'm very interested to hear why you disagree.
Well, actually, I think this is where we have a great story to tell, actually. Every cloud provider's reputation is purely built on their ability to keep your data secure and accessible. It's core to their very existence. And if you care about the reliability, security, and protection of your data, you should actually entrust it to those who are most capable of managing it. So a company like Google, for example, that was born in the cloud, that has, the cloud is in their DNA, so to speak. We have, for example, hundreds and hundreds of the best engineers in the world solely focused on protecting your data. So I think there's a couple of ways to bear this in mind when you're thinking about this. The first is the cost to you of trying to replicate the uptime capability that someone like Google or Sage can provide. I mean, we have, for example, a 99.9% guarantee of uptime for Google Apps. And we do this through synchronous replication, where data and end users' actions in Google Apps are mirrored near real time across multiple data centers. Attempting to actually replicate this level of reliability with on-premise or hosted technology is tremendously costly and complex. Even very large enterprises with state-of-the-art data recovery systems typically target a recovery time of 1 hour, and they actually accept the loss of 1 hour's worth of data. With cloud computing, even SMEs can get amazing world-class reliability at low prices. And I think the second really important point to consider here is is if you have a theft or you lose your laptop, for example. About over 1,000 laptops get lost in Heathrow Airport alone every week, right? And typically you hear that about 1/3 of stolen laptops have, only 1/3 of stolen laptops have full data encryption for preventing data breaches. And how many USB keys go missing every day with your company's data? So the cloud actually ensures that not only can you still access your data, so it's not lost, even if your laptop goes missing, but it also actually gives you extra protection from someone else accessing your data should that happen to you. So this is really a very powerful message for SMEs in increasing their overall security and protection and accessibility for their data.
Well, I think that's very important, and I've had my laptop stolen, and I can tell you it's a worrying thing. You don't want people to see that data, and you don't want to lose it. It's quite a lot of work on there. Well, good. So we've heard about synchronous replication and data centers and recovery times and various other sort of semi-technical things like that. And that's fine. That could create the impression, and I know, Neil, that that's not at all your intention, but that it's quite a technical thing, and maybe something that somebody who is not interested in technology can get to grips with. And Amy, your members are small businesses, and the members that the clients that they have are often small businesses, and so you've got a lot of experience talking to actual real people rather than techie people like us. And I'm interested, is this something only for geeks and nerds?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say definitely the good news is that apparently the tech geeks are so good at what they do that they have made it very simple for the rest of us to use these amazing technologies. And I think, we live in a world now where everything is instant on, and like you were saying with Facebook, if we download an app, we have to be able to use it within a matter of seconds, or we'll try something else. So even though your average bookkeeper, the members that we're dealing with are usually not your sort of archetypal tech geek. Quite often they are slightly maturer people, maybe sort of 45 to 55 as an average. Quite a lot of them are women, mothers bringing up kids. And we're finding that actually they're incredibly responsive to these new technologies, and they're very interested in ways that they can help them do their job more easily and quicker. And then certainly I think when you add to that there's actually quite a strong movement towards online coming from the government, and particularly with the accountancy industry, they're being very affected by the fact that Companies House and HMRC are now requiring that we file our tax returns online. So I think it's definitely here whether we like it or not, really.
Amy, can you give us some examples? I think we talked last week about different ways in which some of your members might be using cloud computing to communicate or work with clients or something like that.
Well, I suppose the great thing about being a bookkeeper is that it's very flexible, and some of our bookkeepers are employed by companies that are themselves quite often using various types of accounting software. So you'll have something to do your accounts in, and you'll have something to do your tax computations with. And then we also have bookkeepers who are working from home. So not only are they using accounting-based software like Sage 1, they're also using sort of standard spreadsheet software like with Google Apps, and using that to enable them to deal with their clients without having to pop in and see their client every day.
So potentially it's a way of saving time and communicating, a bit like we're doing now with people in California and people in Reading and other glamorous locations. Okay, good. Well, that sort of brings us quite neatly onto Sage 1. And Nick, I wondered if you could take a few minutes and just talk us through Sage 1 and how it works and what you do with it and why it's particularly cloudy.
Sure. So thanks, Matthew. So Sage 1, again, sage1.com. It's actually three products really. First is accounts, which is where, as its name suggests, you do your accounts. Second is payroll, which is very simple app for paying people every month, every week, however you pay your staff. And then there's also what we call the Accountants Edition, but it's actually very good for bookkeepers, which is where bookkeepers and accountants manage their clients' data online. So every business, and Amy's referred to this already, every business is, the government's actually, I know this might sound weird, but they are trying to make it easier and easier for people to do their accounts, and especially the very small business. We've got income and expenditure. What we've done with Stage 1 is to take all the jargon of accounting out of the application. So our aim is that our customers, so again, imagine you're a startup, you're doing a consultancy or services, or you're opening a barber shop or whatever it is, you're going to focus on how you make money. That's as simple as it gets. And we do not want you to waste time learning or being confused by the app. So we've absolutely designed it with no jargon whatsoever. It's a pure cloud application, and I really want to refer back to what Neil said. You know, Sage is a FTSE 100 business with a global leader in small business accounting and payroll, and it's absolutely our priority to keep our customers' data safe. So there's no download, there's no offline version. You can access it from any device anywhere in the world. And believe me, we do. We had it the other night. We had somebody paying their people in the UK while they were on holiday in Hungary. You know, it's totally possible and flexible. But that whole emphasis around security and access is absolutely key. And one piece of advice I would give, again, kind of building on what Neil said, is that, you know, when you are putting your data in the cloud, you really want to make sure that you're going with a trusted brand that has the infrastructure and the financial backing to ensure that that's all safe. Let me talk for a moment about payroll. Now, accounts and payroll might seem like the dullest things in the world to most businesses, but they are necessary. Okay, so payroll can be done. Our customers either do their payroll themselves, or they do that with their bookkeeper or their accountant or a payroll bureau. So let's face it, if you go on our blog, actually I just posted a blog called Everybody Loves Payday, because essentially you've got to pay your people on time, and you've got to do that in such a way that's accurate, so the national insurance tax, etc. But increasingly, the government's new legislation called real-time information means that when you pay staff, that information has to go online to HMRC. What we've done in our product is make it incredibly simple for business owners and bookkeepers to run payroll either for themselves or on behalf of someone else. And the information that goes through that system then just automatically goes to the government under the new RTI, real-time information legislation. We just did a survey with our customers, and in answer to the question, how easy was it to run your payroll with RTI software from Sage 1, the response was 100% said it was easy, and 82% of those said it was very easy. So we're all about enabling customers to focus on their business, and enabling bookkeepers to, as Amy said, expand their practice and take on clients with as little training or no training at all. Now, where Google Apps comes in is we recognize that, you know, a lot of small businesses want to get up and running on the cloud straight away. So they can use Mail, they can use Google Docs, they can use a Google Calendar. So we've integrated Sage 1 with that platform so that we've got the full suite of apps that a customer might want to use. So straight away they can start emailing their customers, straight away they can start planning, they can start writing documents, and then they can start sending invoices, getting paid, and pay their people all through one cloud suite of applications.
And Nick, what difference does it make to them that they can do it in the cloud rather than, for example, buying a piece of software on a CD and installing it on their computer?
Well, I mean, I won't repeat all the pieces that you talked about earlier about having your laptop stolen. I know a bookkeeper said to me, what happens if Hurricane Sandy comes to the UK? Well, Hurricane Sandy comes to the UK and your laptop goes under, then the software you've got installed on it also goes with it. Whereas if it's in the cloud, it's not just your data in the cloud, it's the application running in the cloud. We've all had laptops die on us, let's face it. So, you know, your laptop dies, you can use your phone, you can use an iPad, and if you buy a new machine or use someone else's, then you can access that data straight away in those applications.
And you can use Sage 1 from any computer with a web browser?
Absolutely, well, as long as it's connected to the internet, of course. But yes, precisely. Yeah, so just like you would use Facebook or LinkedIn or any other app, or Gmail, as Neil said, is, you know, such a popular product. So the tie-in that we're doing with Google is all about enabling, you know, the very small business, this new army of entrepreneurs in the UK and Ireland right now, that we just want them to get going, run their business as quickly and cheaply as possible, safe in the knowledge that their data and their apps are going to run 24/7 from wherever they are.
It can often feel like when you're starting a business, and I know I've started a few in my time, that the government puts a bunch of obligations on you that take a lot of time to comply with, and then you've got to get all this IT stuff working, and that takes a bunch of time. And it feels like these cloud applications are making that a lot easier, not only because you don't have to do the IT, but also actually you get best practice kind of out of the box. And Neil, I'm interested in how that actually applies to Google Apps. I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure everyone will know Google as a search engine, but Google Apps perhaps not so familiar.
Well, we've over 5 million businesses using Google Apps and thousands more signing up every day. So these range in the UK, for example, from large enterprises like The Guardian, The Telegraph, ITV, Rent-A-Kill, Jaguar Land Rover, really well-known names. But right down, of course, to the SMEs that make up the backbone of the UK workforce. And the common benefit across all of these companies is not just the fact that Google Apps saves them lots of money, it does, but it's actually that it's making it easier for them to work. So it's making them far, far more productive. And I'll come back to that. It's a really important point I want to talk about. Firstly, we talked about Gmail, and everybody is familiar with Gmail. And the fact that, Gmail and Google Apps, you get a 25 gig mailbox. Now that means you never have to delete an email again. You never have to, and I dread the days I had to do this myself, you never have to export your mail to a .pst file and then put that on a CD-ROM that gathers dust on your desk. And if you need to go and find an email from 9 months ago for an important client, contract, or whatever it might be, you're fishing around trying to find it. Using Google search technology in Gmail, your email is always there, it's always accessible. So that's one of the core that most people are familiar with. But actually the real value in Google Apps is how it can help improve your team's collaboration. And it could be like using Hangouts like we are right now. If you have teams across multiple locations, or if you're working from home and others from an office or others are traveling, Hangouts can, of course, as part of Google Apps, can help you. But we've a number of SMEs who are using Google Apps in various ways. ACR Cleaning, for example, or a cleaning company, as the name suggests, they're using Google Calendar to help manage their bookings and the rosters of their cleaning companies. We have a company, 5Cool, based in London, and they use Google Groups and Google Docs as part of Google Apps to help communicate, collaborate, both internally and externally to their customer base. And one of my favorite, Kingston Trampolines, they're a trampoline school, and they got rid of Office. They're using Google Apps and Chromebooks, and with Google Drive, they help share files, they work together in real time, ensuring that all their versions of a document are well organized and available wherever they're working or however they're working, from whatever device. Another company, Hummus Brothers, they're restaurants. They own, I think, about 3 restaurants. They're using Google Apps to help share menus and supplier orders across their restaurants and better organize their management agenda and management meeting agendas. But these are the day-to-day things that need to be done to make your company more efficient and productive. So I myself, I'm having building work done at the moment on my house, and our architect is actually using Google Apps, and it's been great. So he didn't know I was familiar with the product, so to speak, but he shared large files of drawings with me using Google Drive, and then he actually created a shared spreadsheet on Google Sheets of the action items for us and our builder. Things we needed to do, like pick out lights and windows we prefer, and when we needed to order floors and things like this. So this was a really powerful way for him to help organize his business, but also to help organize his clients. Again, just another day-to-day example of how small businesses are using Google Apps to be more productive in the way they're working. So I think whether you're all working together on the same slides for a big customer presentation, or monitoring your budgets using spreadsheets, things I do day to day, the ability to work on the same document at the same time, collaborate in it, is really quite incredible, actually. It really changes the way companies work and makes them far, far more productive.
Yeah, it sounds like we've talked a lot about how different bits of technology can help and how it works, and that's really interesting. And Amy, you talked a little bit earlier about bookkeepers and the different styles of work that they have. And perhaps you could talk a little bit more about that and how they're using this kind of technology in the real world to get their job done and work with customers and so on.
So as I mentioned, I think what really draws people to bookkeeping as a profession is that it does give you a little bit of freedom to choose how you want to work, and we don't all necessarily believe in the job for life anymore. So whilst on the one hand, for a certain period of time you might want to be on a good salary working in an accounts department, there may come a time when you want to spend more time at home, be it because you're looking after kids or looking after an aging parent, or because you just don't want to go to the office every day. And I think that's one of the great things about probably being a bookkeeper, but also that's why these new technologies are so incredibly useful. And for bookkeepers particularly, they are, I suppose, different from how you might normally interact with an accounting professional, because they don't want to be the person that you go to at the end of the year when you're in trouble. What makes them really unique, I think, is that they are usually very involved in the businesses that they work for. And as Nick was saying, there is this army of entrepreneurs who they want to help. They're quite interested in helping businesses sort of systemize their processes. And what that requires is a lot of connectivity. And they want to be very involved with those businesses. But if you're operating from home, it makes a great deal of sense to be able to connect with your clients as much as possible whilst being off-site. And I think that's particularly true when you've got a year-end deadline. So maybe, and I'm sure it never happens, there might occasionally be a time when a small business hasn't got everything in order, or the receipts are all jumbled up and things aren't making sense.
The infamous shoebox of receipts.
The shoebox of receipts, exactly.
I know
it's very rare, very rare. But that's the kind of thing that bookkeepers love. They love having the shoebox of receipts, and if you can pick up the phone and look at the same data that your client is looking at exactly the same time and sort out those little problems, then it just saves time and it saves money at the end of the day. And I think, and also it's not just collaborating with clients, it's also collaborating with your team. So I think for a lot of people who work from home, there might come a time when you want to expand your team, but you don't necessarily want them all hanging out with you in your kitchen. So any way that you can expand your business but not have to expand your premises is a bit of a no-brainer, really, I think.
So sometimes I think you can save money by not having to hire a big office and give everyone a desk. If you can hire people and they can work from their home, there's a saving there. How many bookkeepers are there? I mean, tell me a little bit about your membership and how that works.
Well, so the ICB, the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, I suppose we're a regulator for bookkeepers in a sense that you could say we're a little bit like a LinkedIn that you can only join if you're really good at your job and you've done loads of really hard exams. So a lot of what we do is working with these bookkeepers. As I say, a lot of them are employed. I spoke to somebody the other day he was working self-employed, and one of the companies that he was working for, their accountant wanted to retire. And so what they did, they swapped roles. So the self-employed bookkeeper became employed as the company accountant, and he now subcontracts to this bookkeeper who's retired and working freelance. So I think that's the really cool thing. So there isn't really one type of bookkeeper. You can work for all different kinds of companies, and when you're self-employed, you are, by definition, working with sometimes hundreds of different types of companies. And I think that's the really cool thing about Sage 1, is that it allows you to sort of broaden your horizons in terms of the types of clients that you take on. So there will always be clients that want you to come in 3 times a week. no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing their bookkeeping or you're doing their decorating. But what Sage 1 lets you do is, I suppose, use up smaller pockets of time. So there's this, more and more people, as Nick said, are setting up businesses nowadays. If you've got a graphic designer in Shoreditch, they're young, they're used to using the internet, they want to be able to access their accounts, but they probably need someone to just sort of come and tidy it up every once in a while. So whilst they don't want you coming into their office, they don't have an office, they don't want to see you necessarily every day. So having something like Sage 1 allows you both to take part in the same process, but it means that you can start adding clients that you only see every now and again, rather than having 3 days a week where you're super productive and then having a couple of days where actually you don't have time to take on another big client. So in a way, it's sort of
cloud technology sort of becomes the way in which you interact with those customers, with those clients.
Exactly, and it lets you. I think it becomes the way that you get to service a different type of market, and probably just it can help diversify the business.
And do you see bookkeepers and all their customers increasingly take up cloud computing, cloud technology like Google Apps or Sage 1?
Well, certainly, as I say, I think bookkeepers particularly, because they're so well informed, because tax rates are changing all the time. They have to be aware of deadlines on behalf of their clients. The compliance issue, as we've mentioned, is so important. I think they have to be very adaptive to change, and I think we all are now. And I think, I think it becomes so that you have to use all the tools that are available to you. And certainly if you've got lots of clients, they're all going to be different. So you need to be able to diversify your offering in order to help as many clients as possible.
Well, I certainly remember when I started my first business, goodness me, 20 years ago. Somebody told me, the great thing about having your own business is, the bad thing is you have to work 24 hours a day, but the good thing is you get to choose which 24 hours you work. And I think the big change now is that cloud computing is actually taking away a lot of that overhead and letting you concentrate on what you want to do and not what you have to do. And I wonder if anyone would like to chip in a little bit on this time-saving aspect of cloud computing.
Sure. I mean, I think specific. I'm going to talk a little bit about payroll again. It's a great example. Our product, we've had a lot of interest actually through the Chrome web store, thanks to Google. But we're getting, as typically, if you, and sort of following on from the bookkeeper story that Amy was telling, anybody that's been involved with the professional know the end of the tax year, there's such a thing as payroll year end, which is, if you've ever been, if you've ever known or a bookkeeper or an accountant, they will be tearing their hair out at that time of year because it is super stressful. And because now all the payroll submissions are happening online through tools like Sage 1 Payroll, thanks to real-time information, what that's actually doing, it's quite scary for people who are doing payroll for themselves or for others, because they think, oh, it's a tax change, am I going to get it wrong, am I going to, I'm going to get fined. And by the way, you could in the future get fined if you get it wrong. Which is why you need to use an approved solution such as Sage 1 Payroll. But the point I'm going to make is, instead of having to do all this huge number of hours at the end of the year and stress and really sweating at the end of the financial year, our customers are able to pay their people in 4 clicks in a matter of minutes. And every time they do that, that information seamlessly, almost invisibly, just goes to HMRC, and we know that 65% of businesses in the UK that are already on RTI or using Sage products, and over 500,000 businesses in the UK use Sage for payroll. Increasingly, we're seeing a strong uptake in the cloud solution because it's designed with ease of use, all the things that we've been saying. You can use it wherever you want as long as you're connected to the internet. And when you've paid your people, all that information just miraculously goes to the government and you're done. You've saved time and you've gained peace of mind. And by the way, what the time has changed. Times have changed in the software industry. You know, our product starts at £5 a month, and I know that Google Apps is incredibly cheap for startups to really get going with their business. So, going back to the time aspect, you're absolutely right. What our customers want is two things: time and peace of mind, to know that their accounts are in order and their payroll's in order. And I feel that the cloud's really enabling us to give our customers those two benefits.
Okay, we've had a question from our audience. Thank you. How easy is it to move from Sage 1 to Sage 1 from another platform, and indeed, why should they? And perhaps Amy, you'd like to have some experience in different accounting software. Maybe you could comment on that.
Well, I think with all of these things, if you have a qualified professional to help you, then all of these things are much easier. I mean, from my perspective, I think online is cool, and I think also, Sage included, some of these accounting software packages aren't very intuitive. And the thing about Sage 1 is that it's really designed from the client's perspective, so it doesn't talk to you about sort of debits and credits and all of these things that you don't necessarily need to know as a business owner. So I think certainly if you don't necessarily think you can do away with proper professional help. You know, accountants and bookkeepers love doing accounts, so if you can pay them, you know, less than you normally bill to your own clients, then take advantage of that service. But definitely, I am a big fan of taking control, and things like Sage 1 just allow you to have a bit more understanding of how things are going. And of course, cash flow is key, particularly for the startup market, I think. So anything that can help you keep on top of that, I think, is worth thinking about transferring to.
And Nick, perhaps this is your opportunity to give a quick plug. How easy is it to move to Sage 1? Are there sort of import capabilities, or I think also, perhaps you can mention one other thing. We talked the other day about, you know, one of your biggest competitors being a box of receipts and then a spreadsheet, and perhaps moving from that situation as well.
Sure. Yeah, so we have data import. With Sage 1 accounts, there's a data import feature which enables you to bring in a lot of that data. With Sage 1 payroll, I mentioned that there's this big switch going on with RTI. So the perfect time to start getting ready for this, and by the way, the first month is free, so you can get going for nothing. The perfect time to get ready for RTI is now, because the legislation comes into force in just 2 months. So people have got time to kind of play around, and you know, we are actually going to be offering some migration solutions as well between now and the switch over to RTI, just to make it really, really easy. But basically, yeah, it's pretty simple to get your data into Sage 1. And I guess the question then would be, well, why would you do that? I mean, so pay as you go with no monthly tie-in from as little as £5, so you're saving money. And I think I'm just going to echo what Amy said, because I'm really passionate about this. Time and peace of mind is what our customers want. And those two things we absolutely offer. And just to sort of top it all off, we've got also 24-hour support should customers, telephone support in the UK should customers need help. And it might sound counterintuitive because we've talked a lot about ease of use in the cloud, but actually what we're talking to here again is that army of startups. People are starting something that they can do on their own or with a friend, or, you know, at the sort of 2-3 person company. They don't know about how to do their accounts. They don't know how to do their payroll, and they just want that reassurance. So we're there on the end of the phone to help them out.
Great. Well, we're nearly at the end of our time here, and I just wanted to finish my little bit by saying, you know, okay, starting a business is hard work and it's exciting. I don't think there's ever been a better time to start your own business. And the great plus point is you get to work with a boss you love. But I'd like to ask each of you, Nick, Neil, Amy, for a short bit of advice, tip, insight about cloud computing before we close. Amy, do you want to go first?
Yes, okay. I think the main thing that I would say is that I think change has become the constant. And I think no matter which profession you're in, whether you're a bookkeeper or you're a graphic designer who's just had their tax return done by a bookkeeper, I think you have to embrace new tools to help you do your work better. And I think you used to learn a trade and you would stick with it and you would use the same tools, for your entire career. And I think that's changed. But the great thing about cloud computing is that you can try before you buy. There's no big investment risk, and don't be intimidated by it. It is there to help you do what you do better.
Thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I think a couple of points I'd make, Matthew, is that like any business, you should focus on what differentiates you from your competitors. And apply your resources there. And for the other things, be it your payroll, your CRM, your email, your collaboration tools, the cloud will always give you much better capability than you could possibly develop yourself for a fraction of the cost. And it's also much easier than you think to make the change. So I know Nick and Amy talked about that, but small businesses can literally change over to Google Apps during their lunch hour. And we have 24/7 telephone, email support if you have any problems at any time. But also if you're worried or need additional help, we have a network of thousands of partners who can help you move to the cloud too. And finally, the thing I'd say is that moving to the cloud can be positively transformative for your business. It's not really a case of if I should move to the cloud. It's actually whose cloud is best. So if you think through these three key areas, I think you'll be really successful and you'll never look back.
Thank you. Good. Nick, last word.
Thank you. I'm going to echo one thing that Neil said and then add something else from myself, Matthew. So I think it's time for everyone to stop worrying about security in the cloud, because we said it 1,000 times. How many times have you lost all your data because your laptop died or whatever? That's just not going to happen with the cloud. And here comes my final word, which is provided that the vendors that you're working with are trusted, have the infrastructure Neil described really well, the best engineers in the world securing Google's infrastructure. And we have exactly the same thing at Sage with a global cloud platform. And if customers are worried about security and worried about whether their data is just going to disappear, it's not going to happen with a large vendor like Google or Sage. So stop worrying, start using the cloud, save time, get peace of mind.
Great. Well, thank you. Good tips from all of you, and thank you very much. Over to you, Paul, to wrap up.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for taking part in the Hangout today. Really enjoyed it, and I think there was some excellent advice and interaction happening there via Twitter as well as through Google+. For anyone that joined late in today's broadcast, it'll be available to watch again afterwards via our YouTube channel, which is Sage 1 UK Official. And we'll also be sharing it on our Facebook page, which is Sage 1 UK. And if you want to watch another Google Plus Hangout, we're doing our next one on the 21st of February, which will be dedicated to PAYE year-end and the new real-time information legislation. So thanks again for everyone. Really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.